So you heard it here first. A free year of Xbox Live Gold with every Xbox
Or something comparable, something to justify that extra $100. Although I have to say, shelling out $100 extra bucks, even if you're getting something of $100 value that you would pay over time, for a lot of people is difficult. It's a lot of money. And what both Microsoft and Sony do realize is they only get one chance every generation to get people to switch their allegiance. I am not a Sony fanboy, I'm not a Microsoft fan, I have both. I'm lucky because I can afford both. Most people get one or the other, and they want to buy the one they already have.
One in every room of your house, just like your HDTVs.
So you get a chance to switch people very infrequently, and if Microsoft drops that ball, it's going to be hard to pick it up.
Well, and that's the thing that I think has been fascinating about this year, because you said a few years ago.
Well, you know, Jason has the PlayStation, the TV over the bathtub, but he actually has the Xbox in the room with the toilet.
No, he's got a TV by the pool.
So but you know, we forget, and I think Jason continuously brings us back here. And you gotta, you know, it's gotta always be in your mind that, you know, $100 is a big deal.
Right.
And if it's $100 less to buy the thing, okay, but you have it, and then you have that customer for years. And if you treat that customer well, they will have the money and they will feel good about spending the money on other content. And that other content is going to make you a lot more margin in your business than the $100 that you eat on the hardware is ever going to take away from you. That's really important to understand. But again, this is a really new way of thinking for a lot of businesses, not just Microsoft and Sony. I mean, all sorts of old school businesses are getting creamed by this right now.
Well, the one thing that I think is fascinating this year is when I talked to Sony earlier in the year about PlayStation 4, the one thing they couldn't figure out how to unlock was, all these Xbox Live gamers love their achievements, love their gamer scores, all that. And now, after all the announcements, I think so many people were just willing to kind of flee away from Xbox and say, hey, I'll go to PlayStation. It's like, I want to move to this other platform that seems to be more for me. So how much damage do you think has Microsoft done long term? They've tried to recover, but I mean, how tough is it going to be for them over the next year here to win back these games?
I think short term, they've done a lot of damage to themselves. And this year is a very important year because, as we keep saying, in a few years, who knows where the industry will be. But I also, one of the things, since the last time we were on this show, I was watching the show this morning, so I watched everything we said. I believed back then, and I believe even more now, most of these things are not catastrophic and momentary. Things take time and things change over time. So again, at E3, it was easy to say it's absolutely over for Microsoft. And then 48 hours later, it had changed. Maybe not, they hadn't recovered 100%, but they had gotten up off their stumble and they were walking.
Anymore.
So it's anytime you sit there and say it's over for Microsoft, which is easy to say now, you're generally jumping ahead of yourself. And I think there's a lot of things that can happen over the next few years that will make a difference. There's a lot of subtle things going on. Why does this game play 1080 on this and up-res to 1080 on that? I think in 6 months that'll be behind us. I think that's a very minor instance, but it matters. It matters. It's part
people
of
love to debate that, 720 versus 1080, and
absolutely. But long term, we're not going to be looking back on that. How many people remember in 2006 who are sitting in front of their PlayStations right now that it was a $600 launch that we just said, and all the other things we're saying about it? They don't remember any of that. That's so far behind us now, and it will. This stuff will be behind us.
If you're Microsoft, what do they have to do to win this generation, to climb above Sony? What steps should they be taking?
They have to be price competitive. I mean, I think there's not a chance that they sell more consoles if they remain $100 more expensive. It's just not possible. The boxes are too similar, and consumers don't perceive $100 of value from Kinect.
But what if...
To put it in perspective, you follow companies. Let's say that they have to give away 8 million, a first year of sales would be 8 million units. Let's say I have to give away $100. It's not 100 to them because there's markup on it and everything else, but you're talking $800 million worth of eating, right? They can eat 800 million without thinking about it. They have $60+ billion in the bank. So if it's important to them, absolutely.
And that's
but
a hard
they
decision.
can do it. It's absolutely. Nobody says let's just eat it $800 million, but it's on the table and they can do it. And it's not going to radically change Microsoft's future from a cash flow standpoint.
And
so the question is it a good thing for them to do?
It's 7 million consoles if you charge $500.
Exactly.
And it's
so
9 million consoles if you charge $400. So they actually won't eat $800 million.
Of course.
It's probably like 300 million.
So as the analyst,
and then the lifetime value of that extra couple of million consumers is at least $1,000 a piece.
Exactly.
So it's $2 billion that you make to give up this 800
So
million.
you
other
walk
thing
down
you
the
can
road
note
and you
here-
say they could just eat it.
They should eat
They
it.
could just eat
They
it.
should eat
you have
it.
you have another really important thing to note here, which is that let's say it seems like you're getting more money if you go to 900 million. But in point of fact, the Xbox customer is much more likely than a Sony customer to spend money online.
Right.
So that increased sales is going to net you a lot more revenue.
Right.
No, of
And
course.
you have to, model that stuff in a very sophisticated way, and then go to, whoever the powers that be are above the three-headed monster, and make your case to that person who may be totally tone deaf to games, maybe totally tone deaf still to the way that the free-to-play model works, the way that free software has gone, the way that the way that the new economy of software as a service is working.
It's
and
only
make
two
that
people.
case. Very
it's
hard
only
to do.
two people. It's Julie Larson Green and Steve Ballmer and/or his successor. That's it. There's one person above the three guys that run the division, and then there's the
Joachim
CEO.
Kempen put out a great book. I don't know if you saw that or not. He was the sort of like, I don't know what his actual title was, I think it varied, but he was sort of the grumpy old guy you had to go to get cash at Microsoft for a long time. And he spent a lot of time talking about how all of Microsoft's new products are essentially rubbish. It's hilarious to read this book. And one of them is Xbox. It's just total rubbish, right? They never should have done it. It should be spun off as its own division and all this other stuff, right? And it's indicative of, if you read it, the kind of thinking that you have to go up against to make what we think are these like seemingly trivial decisions. And it's it's like having Kutaragi out and not having somebody who is constantly telling you how it has to be done. Is thinking about the world like it's 1992.
Xbox and Xbox Live are integral to Microsoft's future.
Yeah.
And how much did they eat on Surface this year? How much
Yeah.
did they take a negative write-down? 800 million.
There you go.
Just about the same. And is anybody thinking that Microsoft is weakened because of it?
Stock's at a 5-year high right now.
Stock's at a 5-year high, right? So a major thing for everybody who's watching to understand is there's a big difference between Microsoft and Sony in terms of size, cash position. Writing down 800 million for Sony right now would be a big deal.
Right.
Writing down 800 million for Microsoft is doable.
Writing 800 down for Sony right now would involve the CEO apologizing to the shareholders.
I have
and
to tell you
bowing.
the truth, though. I think the $400 PS4 was an $800 million write-down for Sony because I think they were thinking 500, and they realized they had an opportunity when Microsoft said 500 to price below them, and they
They're
did.
aggressive.
Yeah, I think that, and in fact, I think they were ready to go lower, and so they went back to Tokyo saying we saved money.
Yeah, I think that's
Well,
But-
that's one thing we haven't talked about is, there's a lot of talk about Microsoft this year about would they do a subsidy on the box or would it become your cable box? And, as we look over the next few years, how do you guys feel the sort of entertainment play for Microsoft is going to run its course? Because, we know what PlayStation 4 is, but is there a scenario next year where all of a sudden Comcast is saying, hey, you're getting an Xbox One as your cable box, you're going to get it for $99, and then they're going to all of a sudden have a massive installed base that could potentially pull ahead of Sony.
That's absolutely
going to
happen, and I think they always plan for that to happen at launch, and I just don't think they got their act together to get distribution through cable companies.
So that would be a big game changer.
Because they need GameStop and Best Buy to sell you the box,
Right.
and Walmart, and those guys don't sell cable subscriptions. So they've got to work that through. That's a next year. That's a Christmas
It's
2014.
an awkward moment right now when
Right.
all that stuff is
It's gonna happen.
is disconnected.
And how is that going
It's
to,
a huge advantage. If the cable goes into the Xbox, you're much more likely to be using the Xbox more often, which gives you opportunities to buy more online games. It's massive for them. They were so far down that road. They were so far ahead of Sony in their minds in doing that they forgot to sell the game or the console.
That's exactly
what
right.
happened to them.
And that took so much effort that's where their focus went. It's an interesting thing though. You bring up Surface again and again. What's the difference between Xbox and Surface at a business from a business level standpoint? It's that there's no equivalent for Xbox Live on Surface. Aside from the sales of the thing and its operating system, there's no economy that's built around that. This is the huge advantage that Xbox has as a business, politically inside of Microsoft, and also just as a piece to move around on the battlefield. And something Sony doesn't have an answer to really. Very interesting.
So but if they do the cable thing, does that then change the conversation about, are they going to pull ahead of Sony? How do they win this generation? If all of a sudden
they
there's...
still have to get the console into people's hands. And I think
But they could through a cable
Everybody
company.
watching, whether they have a Microsoft console or a Sony console, would agree $100 makes a difference.
Right.
Right?
And this
Especially
year,
if you have an Xbox and you've jumped ship mentally to PlayStation, and now all of a sudden they're the same price, you might reconsider. That's the audience that we're talking about when we're talking about taking this
We
step.
can be all high and mighty and discuss business models. Nobody walks into the Best Buy and asks the salesperson, I would like the most efficient home console for my entertainment consumption.
Right.
right? No, it's how much does it cost and how stoked am I about what it can do, And both of these guys have to do a much better job exciting consumers about why they have to have this thing in their house. It's a passion product.
Yep.
It's an entertainment product,
Agreed.
right? All of this crap that we're talking about is very abstract. Maybe we even seem smart about it occasionally, but it doesn't matter one bit if people don't walk into the store and have to have that PlayStation 4.
Right.
And coincidentally, they can afford it. Right? Those are the only two things that really matter, and that's what drives the entire thing. All this other junk that we're talking about is really just contributing to that pinnacle moment. If that pinnacle moment doesn't connect, you're not going to have 50 million consoles out there.
Or 250 million.
And you have to be, I think, at the end of the day, even more focused now because you have competition from tablets and all these other people who are coming around.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about what this all means for the game developer and the creator right here in the bonus round.